The graphical user interface of the Clustrx operating system supplements its command line interface with convenient tools for visualizing and managing the operation of a distributed computing system. We log in and see a multi-tab window that comprises various aspects of a cluster system. Cluster info. This tab presents a summary information about the cluster dynamically in time. This pane shows hardware the cluster consists of. This is an especially convenient feature when the cluster is heterogeneous. Here we can see statistics of the tasks or jobs currently running on the cluster, 0 in total, various statistics for those, and what total load the jobs create on the cluster resources. The administrators can see more detailed data about partitions, parts of the cluster's computing resource pool, here. All data are gathered into preconfigured groups and represented by the partitions. This view represents all problematic or hazardous situations on the cluster. They are shown through configurable data filters, which define groups of displayed information. Such filters can be set up by an administrator for their own convenience. Here we can see a general situation concerning alarms, signals of any typical emergencies that may arise on the cluster, such as the condition of compute nodes and servers, the infrastructure equipment condition, machine check exceptions, problems with system services, results of self-diagnostics, and so on. The next tab will display more on this. Navigation. The navigation panel provides a way to inspect and monitor the condition of all cluster objects, both computing hardware and infrastructure equipment such as power supply, cooling, etc. This information can be viewed with all available details, down to particular nodes. Hardware sensors. System services. That run on management nodes. We can see how the objects are nested and make up an hierarchical structure. This makes it possible to visualize the structure of clusters of any size and topology. Objects can be shown as mutually dependent by their physical location, or as a logical structure, or they can be listed by computing hardware types, and other kinds of filtering are available too. This creates a great flexibility in what can be observed through this graphical interface. This is a full information about a particular object. With its hardware sensors, statistics of emergencies, plots of time histories of various parameters, computing job load. There are extensive means of checking the hardware configuration and finding failed components. All noticeable events and actions done on this interface are logged for analysis and safety purposes. Image Manager. This tab is used to manage system images for booting up compute nodes on the cluster. The images can be delivered to any management node or server and assigned as default for any number of compute nodes which boot up from a particular server. Through this, the boot up of any cluster can be scaled easily by creating boot up dependencies between the servers and the client compute nodes. This tab features the functionality such as the deployment of images, group reboot of any number of nodes, selection of a default image for booting up. One of the most important features is the capability of using a particular desired system image for a user job being put on the queue. When doing this, the monitoring and management system takes account of a node's load. If it is free, it will be rebooted, and if it is occupied, we will wait for it to be released. New task. This tab helps a user launch his computing job for execution, setting up its environment, parameters, and consumption of resources. Queue. This tab lets the administrator monitor activities on the cluster job queue, how the jobs are being executed, now there are hardly any, what is going on the computing resource pool. Various administrative actions can be done on the jobs. Configuration. This tab is used by administrators to set up configuration settings for monitoring and management applications, the backbone of the Clustrx operating system. The automated equipment shutdown system can be configured flexibly. Response actions can be associated with emergency situations. Scripts can be created, edited, and assigned to define such actions. SNMP and Modbus sensors, data sources can be defined and configured. The ACL section is used to set up access control lists for limiting, preventing, or otherwise regulating access to the web interface, command line interface, or the cluster computing resource pool for all kinds of users. A flexible mechanism of user groups and roles is employed. This completes our review of the web-based graphical user interface for management and monitoring of the Clustrx operating system.